In the heart of a bustling American metropolis, where neon lights collided with the ancient silhouettes of towering trees in the nearby wilderness, Talia's restless spirit sought refuge from the dull hum of everyday existence. Even as city sirens mingled with the nocturnal whispers of nature, she felt an inexplicable pull toward the enigmatic wild, a pull that had led her to cross paths with Oren, a reclusive man whose very presence radiated both danger and sorrow. Talia's days were spent navigating the intricate maze of urban life, working in a modest yet inviting art gallery tucked away on a historic downtown street. She exuded a quiet confidence born from years of grappling with unspoken dreams and buried secrets. Yet, it was in the deep recesses of midnight, when the city lights gave way to the raw illumination of the moon, that her thoughts turned to the wilderness, to memories whispered by ancient legends, and most of all to Oren. Oren, the alpha of his pack, carried a burden that was as old as the land itself, a burden wrapped in mystery, shadow, and untold regret. Rumors swirled through hidden circles about his lineage. Some said his ancestors were guardians of lost relics, while others hinted at darker pacts made under starless skies. Yet what set him apart even more was the silence he cultivated, a careful, deliberate silence that rendered him both approachable and impenetrable. His eyes, intense and forlorn, seemed to communicate the weight of centuries without uttering a single word. On a humid summer evening, as the skyline shimmered with heat and the scent of distant rain beckoned promise, Talia found herself wandering toward the outskirts of the city, drawn by a persistent, almost magnetic pull. The urban chaos gave way to shadowed trails and secret glades hidden beneath towering pines. The forest, alive with the rustle of unseen creatures, became the stage for fate's intricate dance. She recalled the hushed warnings of her grandmother about the Whispering Woods, a place where the past and present commingled, where every leaf might conceal a fragment of forbidden lore. Talia's pulse quickened as she approached a clearing, where moonlight penetrated the canopy in silver shafts. There, resting against an ancient oak with bark weathered by countless seasons, stood Oren. His presence was unmistakable. Even beneath a long, worn leather jacket and faded denim, there was an aura of power that belied any ordinary man. His dark hair was slicked back, his gaze steady yet haunted. The scars, faint but persistent along his jawline, hinted at battles fought both within and without. "Good evening," Talia greeted, her voice a careful blend of confidence and vulnerability. Her tone betrayed a hint of trepidation, as if she were aware that every word might draw her deeper into a labyrinth of secrets. Oren's lips twitched, a subtle smile that seemed both an invitation and a warning. "Evening," he replied, his tone sparse yet resonant. For a long moment, no words passed between them. The silence was a palpable force, rife with the unsaid and the unknown. Talia's eyes searched his, sensing that behind his guarded demeanor lay an ocean of stories, of love, loss, and battles waged against fate itself. Their conversation meandered like a slow dance. Talia recounted memories of her childhood spent in libraries crammed with folklore and tales of celestial battles, while Oren, with careful restraint, offered only half-revelations, a mention of battles with inner demons, an acknowledgement of a past marred by unresolved grief. Every word they spoke deepened the mystery, and with each minute, Talia felt herself ensnared by the raw intensity of his unspoken history. As the night deepened, the forest around them grew alive with the sound of nocturnal creatures. The distant howl of another wolf resonated through the trees, stirring something primal within Talia. She looked to Oren, whose gaze now shifted toward the darkened treeline, as if he recognized the call of a kinship long buried. "You ever feel like the past is always waiting to catch up?" Talia asked softly, her voice trembling with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Oren's eyes darkened, and he glanced sideways, as though reluctant to fully embrace the vulnerability of confession. "Sometimes," he murmured. "It lurks in the shadows, waiting for the right moment." At that juncture, a sudden disturbance shattered the fragile calm. A rustling emerged from deeper within the forest, followed by an otherworldly glow that illuminated the underbrush in spectral hues. Talia's heart raced as she instinctively reached out, urging Oren to step back. His hand, calloused and determined, slid protectively over his heart, a gesture that spoke of both fear and acceptance of an impending confrontation. From the gloom, figures began to materialize, silhouetted shapes that moved with an eerie synchrony. They were not ordinary wanderers. Something about their elongated limbs and luminous eyes spoke of a transformative, almost ancient essence. Oren's face hardened. He whispered, "This is my family, and tonight they have come seeking answers." His voice, laced with both resignation and determination, echoed in the quiet glen. As the figures drew near, it became clear that they too were shifters, each exuding an aura of wild, unbridled nature. Their eyes bore into Talia as if questioning her presence among secrets that should have remained hidden. The tension in the clearing was nearly tangible, the moon overhead now a silent witness to an unfolding drama that promised to upend everything Talia thought she knew. One of the shifters stepped forward, a tall, formidable figure with a mane of silver hair and eyes that burned with an age-old wisdom. "Orin," he intoned gravely, "you have harbored truths that should never see the light. How can you expect us to follow a path paved with silence and half-truths?" His voice carried the weight of generations, a silent rebuke mixed with sorrow. Orin met the gaze of his kin with quiet defiance, replying, "The burden I bear was never meant for the world to understand. It is not my secret to share." His words, though few, carried an air of inevitable tragedy. The silver-haired shifter's lips tightened into a grim line as he continued, "Every secret has its day of reckoning, Orin. And tonight the reckoning begins." Talia, standing at the intersection of destiny and fear, felt an intense pull between the safety of the light and the seductive promise of darkness. Her mind raced with questions. About Orin, about the lore that intertwined his destiny with the fate of his kin, and about her own seemingly insignificant role in an ancient struggle for redemption. Could she dare to unravel the silence that enveloped him, to pierce the veil of his enigmatic sorrow? Or was she destined to be caught in the crossfire of secrets too weighty for one heart to bear? Amid the charged silence, a distant rumble of thunder punctuated the air, as if nature itself had called upon the elements to understir the gravity of the moment. The shifters began to encircle the clearing, their expressions a mix of solemn duty and quiet menace. Orin's eyes softened for a fleeting moment as they met Talia's, and a shared understanding passed between them, an unspoken recognition that the path ahead was fraught with peril, heartbreak, and the possibility of redemption. Suddenly, from the back of the circle, a figure emerged, smaller than the others yet exuding a determination that contradicted its lean frame. It was a young shifter, barely out of adolescence, his eyes reflecting both fear and defiance. I have information," he stammered, his voice trembling as he stepped forward. "There is an ancient covenant, a secret that ties our fate to the mortal realm. If the curse is to be broken, someone must first confront the darkness within." His words, hesitant yet potent, struck a chord deep within Talia, igniting both hope and dread. The circle tightened as the shifter's revelation hung in the cool night air. Talia's mind whirled with the implications of this newfound truth. Was this the moment when the weight of the past would finally be lifted? Or had fate orchestrated a more treacherous test, a challenge that would force each heart present to confront its innermost fears? Orin stepped forward, his voice resolute yet laced with an anguish that could not be masked. "This covenant, it was forged long ago. A pact that I have since defied by clinging to my silence." His confession struck the assembled shifters like a thunderclap, eliciting murmurs of both agreement and discontent. But if we are to move forward, if redemption is even a possibility, then the lies of the past must be confronted. His words, heavy with regret and resolve, resonated with Talia's own buried yearning for truth. In a heartbeat, the clearing transformed into a battleground of ideologies and emotions. Talia moved closer to Orin, her decision echoing in the resolute set of her jaw. "I need to know," she declared softly yet firmly, "about your past, about this covenant. Only then can I truly choose if I am to stand by you." Her words were a blend of fear and bravery, each syllable infusing the night with the promise of change. A tense silence ensued, punctuated only by the rustle of wind through leaves and the low hum of a coming storm. The young shifter's earlier words lingered in the air like a fragile promise, one that, if nurtured, could either mend broken hearts or sever the bonds of loyalty forever. In that suspended moment, time appeared to stretch indefinitely, each heartbeat a testament to the silent war waged within and without. As Talia and Orin stood poised on the razor's edge of revelation, the forest around them seemed to shudder with anticipation. The ancient oak overhead bore witness to countless cycles of renewal and decay, its gnarled branches now reaching out as if to cradle the secrets of the night. With a final glance between them, silent yet profound, their fates entwined in an inescapable dance of destiny and defiance, the looming threat of the covenant cast a long, ominous shadow over their fragile hope. In that charged hour, as the first droplets of rain began to speckle the forest floor and a palpable murmur of change rippled through the clearing, the night itself held its breath. With secrets clawing at the edges of their souls and the mysteries of an ancient curse tightening their grip, Talia and Orin braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation, a confrontation where every revelation could be a step toward liberation or an irrevocable plunge into chaos. The crisp air of early evening settled over the wilderness as the tension from the previous confrontation continued to simmer. With the shifter's silent accusation hanging in the air, Talia's mind churned with countless unanswered questions. Questions about trust, legacy, and the unfathomable depths of Oren's past. The forest, once serene, now felt like an arena where every rustle of leaves and every distant howl held a secret waiting to be uncovered. Talia moved a few steps away from the circle of shifters, her instincts compelling her to grasp the undercurrents of this unspoken conflict. Her eyes met those of the silver-haired shifter, whose expression was a mix of stern authority and pity. "You believe your silence shields you from the sins of old?" he asked, his voice a blend of challenge and sorrow. "But every lie has its consequences." Oren's gaze, intense and resolute, shifted between the condemning eyes of his kin and the hopeful, questioning look in Talia's. He took a slow, deliberate breath before replying, "My silence is not an act of deception, it is my burden, the weight of centuries that I carry with me. Each secret, each misstep of my forebears, has conspired to shape a fate that I have long tried to rewrite." The words hung heavily between them. Talia's heart ached at the sound of his confession, the raw, unguarded admission of pain that spanned lifetimes. "But how can a single man bear the sins of an entire lineage?" she pressed gently, her tone both compassionate and determined. "There must be a way to atone, to break free of these chains." A quiet murmur rose among the assembled shifters, their faces lined with the wisdom of ages. The silver-haired shifter, whose name Talia had come to know only as Eldrick, stepped forward once more. "Redemption is not a gift easily won, young one," he intoned. "It is earned through sacrifice, truth, and the willingness to confront the darkest corners of one's soul." Oren's eyes flickered with memories of battles fought in the solitude of ancient nights, battles not only against external foes but also those waged within, where the ghosts of past transgressions haunted every heartbeat. His voice dropped to a soft murmur, barely audible even as it resonated with unyielding resolve. "There is a covenant, a sacred bond forged in a time when my ancestors sought to protect their kind from a curse that threatened to shatter our existence. But over time, the promise of that covenant twisted, the sacred oath marred by betrayal and selfish ambition. I have spent my life trying to undo a mistake that may have been inevitable." Talia's eyes shone with a fierce determination. "Then let me help you. Let me see what you have hidden away so that we might understand, and perhaps, find a way to mend the fractures of the past." Her voice was tender, yet emboldened with the strength of someone who believed that truth, no matter how painful, was the only path toward salvation. For a long moment, silence reigned as Oren's inner conflict played out in the depths of his gaze. Finally, he nodded imperceptibly and beckoned her closer. "There is a chamber deep in the heart of our ancestral grounds, where the covenant was sealed. Only there will you find the remnants of our history, the echoes of promises made and broken. But be warned, Talia. What you discover may shatter every illusion you've held about me, and the darkness you face may be as consuming as it is revelatory." The words sparked an intense mixture of trepidation and resolve within Talia. Determined not to be swayed by fear, she stepped closer, her hand reaching out tentatively for his. "I am prepared to face whatever lies ahead, if it means we can find our way to redemption together." Her words were both a declaration of her inner strength and an invitation to walk a path lined with uncertainty and hope. The assembled shifters exchanged glances, their features softening with reluctant respect. Eldrick's eyes, hardened by innumerable disappointments, searched Talia's face as if weighing her worthiness. "Very well," he murmured, "but know this, our ancient pact will demand more from you than a mere inquiry. Every secret has a price, and every revelation comes with the risk of further betrayal." Without further delay, Oren led Talia away from the tense clearing. The shifter's wary eyes lingered as the pair made their way along a narrow, well-trodden path that snaked through the dense forest. The air was charged with a sense of destiny, and every step seemed laden with the gravity of impending revelations. As they walked, Oren's guarded silence gradually gave way to guarded memories. He described the ancestral grounds, a hidden enclave nestled among towering redwoods and veiled by centuries-old legends. "This is a place where time stands still," he said quietly. "Here, the echoes of our past are not lost to the wind but are preserved in every stone, every scar on the ancient walls. It is a sanctuary and a tomb for our secrets." The path led them to an imposing stone structure, half obscured by creeping ivy and the relentless embrace of nature. The building, ancient and solemn, exuded an aura of both reverence and sorrow. Carved runes and symbols decorated its facade, each telling a fragment of a story so old that it defied simple recollection. The door, heavy and adorned with weathered metalwork, bore the scars of time and conflict. As Talia traced her fingers over the etchings, a shiver ran down her spine, a premonition of the truths that lay within. Inside, the chamber was dimly lit by shafts of moonlight piercing through cracks in the stone ceiling. Dust motes danced in the still air as if in silent tribute to forgotten eras. Oren led her deeper into the labyrinthine corridors until they reached a central hall. There, on a dais draped in faded velvet, lay a collection of ancient manuscripts, relics, and symbols of the Covenant, a testament to an era when promises were sacred and every word was carved in destiny. Oren knelt and carefully retrieved a weathered journal, its leather cover cracked and time-worn. "This," he whispered, "is my father's legacy, a record of everything that has bound us, blessed or cursed. Within these pages are not only the laws of our kind but also the tragic tale of betrayal that split our bloodline into factions of hope and despair." Talia's eyes widened as she carefully opened the journal, her fingers gently leafing through handwritten entries and illuminated diagrams. Each page was steeped in history and remorse, a mosaic of hope, ambition, and regret. There, in a margin filled with poetic script, was a single line that resonated powerfully: "Redemption lies not in the absolution of our sins, but in the courage to confront them." The words struck Talia like a revelation, stirring a fire within her that promised to forge a new path forward, regardless of the pain it might entail. As Talia absorbed each word, Oren explained, "There was a time when our clan was united by a noble purpose, to protect humanity and preserve the balance between the mortal and supernatural realms. Yet as time went on, greed and ambition slowly eroded our unity, leading to betrayals that fractured our bonds. The Covenant was our attempt to salvage something pure from the chaos, but even that relic of unity has been tarnished by secrets too heavy to bear." His voice trembled with a mixture of regret and resignation, as if he were attempting to exorcise the demons that had long plagued his soul. Their discussion was suddenly interrupted by the distant echo of a knock, a rhythmic sound that reverberated through the stone hall, pulling them back from their reverie. Talia exchanged a glance with Oren, apprehension and determination intertwined in their eyes. "It seems we're not alone," Talia observed quietly, her senses alert to every shift in the ancient air. Oren nodded gravely. "Every secret, as Eldrick warned, demands its due. Perhaps this knock is the herald of another truth or a challenge to our resolve." He rose, his posture reflecting both authority and vulnerability, a duality that seemed to define his very existence. The door slowly creaked open, and a gust of cool air swept into the chamber carrying with it the scent of rain and distant earth. Standing in the doorway was a familiar figure, Caden, Oren's estranged uncle, whose presence had long been a source of internal discord within the pack. Caden's eyes, shadowed by years of exile and regret, held a conflicted expression. "I have come to warn you," he began, his voice wavering between caution and urgency. "There are forces, ancient and relentless, that seek to exploit our divided lineage. The Covenant has weakened, and if we do not mend the rift among us, a storm greater than any we have faced will consume us all." The confrontation that followed was as intense as it was heart-wrenching. Caden's words were laced with bitter truths and warnings that struck at the very core of Oren's identity. "Your silence, Oren, has become a shackle not just for you but for all of us," he accused, his tone resolute. "Every lie you withhold, every secret you bury, only accelerates the doom we face." Oren's eyes burned with unspoken pain as he countered, "My silence was the only refuge I knew, a way to contain the chaos of our past. I have lived in isolation, trying to atone for sins that were not solely my own. But perhaps it is time to face the storm, even if it means embracing the truth with all its brutal clarity." Amid the heated exchange, Talia felt the magnitude of the moment. Here was not just a conflict of wills and ideologies, but a struggle that spanned generations, a battle for the soul of an entire lineage. Her heart pounded with the realization that to stand alongside Oren was to embrace a destiny fraught with peril and sacrifice, but also with the promise of healing the deep wounds of a fractured family. In a calm yet firm interjection, Talia addressed both men. "The path toward redemption will never be without sacrifice. If we are to mend these wounds, we must learn to honor the past without being imprisoned by it. Let us seek the truths hidden behind these ancient texts and decipher the Covenant in its entirety. Only then can we hope to forge a future unburdened by the weight of old sins." Her plea resonated with the sorrow and longing etched into the very walls of the chamber. The three of them, Oren, Caden, and Talia, formed an unlikely alliance, united by the shared recognition that the time had come to break free from the cycles of secrecy and betrayal. In that moment, the ancient manuscripts and relics seemed to pulse with an almost mystical energy, as if they were eager to reveal their long-hidden secrets. As the storm outside began to stir, with thunder rolling across the distant horizon and winds whispering of change, they gathered around the dusty manuscripts. With trembling hands and determined hearts, they started to decode the cryptic verses and archaic symbols that told the history of a covenant meant to serve as a lifeline to redemption. Every deciphered passage illuminated more of the intricate web of relationships, betrayals, and unresolved conflicts that had defined the legacy of Oren's clan. Minutes bled into hours as the trio delved deeper into the mysteries of the covenant. At times, the revelations brought tears to their eyes, memories of past injustices, lost opportunities for reconciliation, and the sting of betrayal that had festered across generations. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there emerged glimmers of hope, a shared understanding that no matter how dark the night, the promise of renewal was hidden within the very acts of confrontation and forgiveness. As the final passage was slowly brought to light, the heavy silence in the chamber was replaced by an anticipatory hush. The text revealed an ancient ritual, a last attempt at unifying the fractured hearts of the pack through an act that required absolute honesty, self-sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to truth. It spoke of a gathering under the pale light of a rare lunar eclipse, a phenomenon that would open a window to another realm, a moment when the veil between past and present would be lifted, and the sins of old could either be absolved or condemned forever. Oren's face grew pale at the mention of the ritual, his eyes reflecting both the terror of his past and the fragile hope of redemption. "This ritual," he whispered, "has been whispered about for generations. It is our final chance to reconcile the torment of our history, to mend the bonds that have been severed by betrayal and fear." His words were resolute, fueled by an urgency that reverberated through every stone and whisper in the chamber. Talia, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the stirring of something deep within her soul, resolved to stand by him. "We must prepare," she declared, her voice both gentle and unyielding. "For this ritual may be our only hope to rewrite our destiny, to silence the ghosts that have haunted us for too long." The commitment in her tone resonated with both men, forging an unspoken pact, one that promised to challenge every preconception, every long-held grudge, until the final truth could emerge unburdened and free. As the rain began to patter softly against the stone walls, a newfound determination took hold of the trio. They set about organizing what was needed to perform the ritual, the sacred items, the forgotten relics, and above all, the courage to confront the sins that had defined their lineage. In that hidden chamber, amidst ancient records and the palpable energy of suppressed history, they made a solemn vow, to face the impending tempest of revelations head-on, even if the cost was more than any of them could bear. In the final moments before they parted ways to gather the necessary elements for the ritual, Talia looked at Oren with unwavering resolve. "When the lunar eclipse comes," she vowed softly, "let's be ready, not as bearers of the past regret, but as harbingers of a future where our hearts can be whole once again." Oren's eyes shone with a bittersweet mix of hope and foreboding as he nodded in silent agreement, while Caden's expression softened, as if the old wounds were at last given a chance to heal in the light of truth. Their separate departures from the ancient chamber carried the weight of their shared mission, the promise of redemption echoing with each determined step. With every passing moment, the storm outside gathered strength, the heavens preparing to bear witness to the final act of reckoning, a convergence of fate and the unwavering human spirit. And as the distant clouds roiled and the first flashes of lightning ignited the sky, the destiny of a fractured family drew inexorably toward its climactic turning point, heralding the somber promise of an imminent, transformative nightfall. The night after the revelation still echoed with the sounds of an impending storm. In the hours that followed their charged confrontation in the ancient chamber, the trio, Oren, Talia, and Caden, moved with a determined urgency. Each step they took on the wet cobblestones of the ancestral grounds reverberated with the weight of secrets long buried. The task before them was monumental, to prepare for an age-old lunar eclipse ritual meant to reconcile fractured kin and to atone for sins whispered across generations. In the solitude of the encroaching darkness, Talia found herself retracing her inner steps. The hidden enclave they had left was shrouded not only by the creeping mists of the forest but also by memories of betrayal and regret. As she made her way back to the edge of the clearing, her mind wandered through fleeting images of her past. Days spent in quiet solitude, nights filled with the hope of understanding who she truly was. Now, with the mysteries of Oren's clan unfurling around her, every familiar place seemed charged with the possibility of revelation. Oren and Caden, meanwhile, had returned to the sanctum of the stone structure to gather relics indispensable for the forthcoming ritual. The ancient manuscripts and handcrafted talismans remained on the dais, symbols of the covenant's power and of the debts owed to both fate and family legacy. Oren's hand trembled slightly as he carefully selected a silver locket, an heirloom passed down from a long-forgotten progenitor. Inside, an engraving chronicled the pact in cryptic verse. "This locket," he murmured to Caden, "contains the essence of our ancestors' hopes and regrets. It will serve as the anchor in our ritual, a physical reminder of the love and sacrifice that must bind us together." Caden's weathered face, lined by years of bitterness and solitude, softened momentarily. "It is time then," he responded in a voice that carried both sorrow and cautious optimism. "For too long have we allowed the wounds of betrayal to fester. Tonight, under the relentless gaze of the celestial orb, we will seek to heal what was torn asunder." His words, though measured, resonated with an urgency that belied the scars of the past. Back outside, Talia's thoughts grew increasingly tumultuous. As thunder rumbled in the distance, she recalled the fervent plea she had made in the stone chamber. Her heart had bled out a promise to face the unyielding specter of Oren's secret history, a promise to confront the darkness, not with anger or fear but with love and resolve. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of rain and a subtle hint of magic, as if nature itself had joined in their sacred undertaking. Determined to be an active bearer of this transformation, Talia sought a moment of solitude beneath a solitary, ancient oak. There, illuminated only by the waning silver of the moon, she allowed her thoughts to unravel. Memories of her childhood, of tales told by her grandmother about ancestral pacts and the redemptive power of truth, merged with her present convictions. "I must be strong," she repeated softly to herself, her gaze fixed on the trembling silhouette of branches overhead. "For love demands that we dare to unmask the pain and let the promise of healing shine through." In that brief, personal ritual, Talia felt a surge of determination, a realization that her destiny was irrevocably intertwined with the fate of the pack. Meanwhile, deep within the stone sanctum, Oren and Caden laid out the ancient relics on a carved wooden table. The manuscripts, brittle with age, were carefully unfurled to reveal cryptic incantations and hallowed verses. A large, ornate bronze chalice, encrusted with symbols of lunar phases and celestial alignments, dominated the table. Oren's fingers traced the delicate filigree, absorbing the history and hope embedded within it. "It speaks of a final convergence," he whispered, his voice a blend of reverence and sorrow, "when the full power of the lunar eclipse will break the cycle of silence and mend the bonds that have been marred by time." Caden studied the text with a critical eye, his mind piecing together fragments of old lore and family memories that had long been obscured by pride and pain. "This convergence," he said slowly, "is not merely a ritual, it is an invitation to reconcile our differences. It demands that we reveal our truest selves, that every fragment of deceit is laid bare before the spirits of our forebears." His tone, though stern, carried a sliver of hope, a hope that even the deepest wounds might finally be healed through the act of confession and the power of an unburdened heart. In the minutes that followed, a palpable tension gripped both the sanctum and the surrounding forest. The storm overhead intensified, heavy droplets tapping against the stone walls like the persistent ticking of a clock heralding the inevitable moment of truth. Caden, ever the pragmatist amidst mysticism, took a deep breath. "We must complete our preparations before the eclipse reaches its zenith. Every second we delay multiplies the shadows of our past." His words rang out, driving them both to work with renewed determination. As Oren meticulously arranged the relics, he pondered the delicate balance between duty and desire, the silent promise he had made to his lost loves, the broken vows of forebears, and the hope of forging a future unmarred by the chains of ancestral mistakes. In his eyes, a storm of emotions battled, remorse, resolve, and a fragile trust that now rested in Talia's unwavering gaze. "For too long, I have kept the tempest of my past locked away," he admitted almost to himself. "But there is power in admitting our faults, in allowing love to mend what arrogance and fear have shattered." Outside, Talia rejoined the others as the first heavy drops of rain began to soften the edges of the night. The trio reconvened beneath the remnants of an old stone archway at the edge of the grounds, a natural altar, its weathered surfaces etched with symbols of life, death, and rebirth. The timing was perfect. The eclipse was expected to reach its peak shortly, and this sacred spot, open to the vast sky, would serve as the ideal stage for the final act of their redemption. Gathered together, they arranged themselves in a semicircle, facing the heavens. The silver locket, the ancient chalice, and the open manuscript lay between them, a representation of the past, present, and the uncertain future that beckoned. Oren took the locket in his hands, his voice resonating with a quiet determination as he began to recite the incantation written in the manuscript. His words wove through the cool night air like an incantation, carrying the combined hopes and regrets of generations. Talia and Caden joined in, their voices melding in a fragile harmony that defied the silence of centuries. The wind swirled about them as if stirred by the force of their collective will, and somewhere in the distance, the first darkening of the lunar disk cast an eerie glow over the ancient altar. Shadows danced upon the stone, embodying the myriad secrets of the pack. For a heartbeat, all became still, the whispered echoes of the past merging with the tangible promise of a changed future. Suddenly, as the incantation reached its crescendo, an unexpected chill swept through the group. The wind carried with it voices, faint, sorrowful echoes that seemed to speak of long-lost regrets and undying hope. Talia's heart skipped a beat as she felt an invisible presence, a familiar yet distant spirit that had once haunted her dreams. "Do you feel it?" she asked softly, her eyes reflecting the glimmer of lunar light and the tremor of awe. Oren's expression was one of both hope and trepidation. "Our ancestors," he replied quietly, his voice barely audible above the rising winds. "They come not to judge, but to witness our reckoning, to remind us that the price of silence is often paid in sorrow." His words seemed to vibrate with the strain of history and the promise of renewal. In that moment, the sacred relics pulsed with an almost palpable energy, and the ancient site transformed into a living testament to love, sacrifice, and the indomitable will to be free of the chains of accursed heritage. The eclipse deepened overhead, the lunar surface now a deep, velvet-blackened disk edged by a silver ring of light. The ritual had ignited something primal within each of them. Caden's stern resolve melted into quiet acceptance as he witnessed the metamorphosis unfold. "Perhaps," he murmured, "redemption was always within our grasp, hidden in the willingness to confront our collective shadows." His words, though soft, resonated like a benediction in the solemn night. As the incantation receded into a lingering silence, a transformative calm settled over the trio. The spirits, drawn by the purity of the act, seemed to whisper an ancient promise, one that acknowledged the burden of the past while heralding a future free from its tyranny. In that suspended moment, Talia felt a profound connection not only to Oren and Caden but to all who had ever carried the weight of an ancestral curse. The journey toward forgiveness was fraught with peril, yet it was also the pathway to healing and, ultimately, transformation. The lunar eclipse reached its zenith, and the gathered trio stood motionless, hearts entwined in silent communion with the old ones. Rain now fell in gentle sheets, cleansing the remnants of old sorrow from the land, while the sacred symbols carved in stone glimmered with renewed life. It was a night of reckoning, a night when the past was finally laid bare, and the seeds of hope were sown in the fertile soil of remorse and redemption. As the eclipse gradually waned and the first heralds of dawn began to edge the darkness away, Talia, Oren, and Caden shared a look that transcended words. In that look was a promise, that the wounds of betrayal would be tended to, that every secret revealed would serve as a stepping stone toward rebuilding the bonds of family, and that even amidst the scars of history, love might yet prove indestructible. The ancient covenant, once a source of endless pain, now pulsed with the promise of transformation. In the hushed aftermath of the ritual, beneath a sky slowly transitioning from gloom to the soft blush of early light, the trio remained united. Their hearts, once burdened by the legacy of silence and betrayal, now beat in unison with the rhythms of a renewed hope, a hope that whispered of new beginnings and the chance to emerge from the shadows untarnished. The ritual had opened a window to transformation, a portal through which the family, shattered by generations of secrecy, could finally be reborn from its own ashes. In the shadow of the unsettled night, as the rain softened to a persistent mist, the ancestral grounds became a living tapestry of conflicted emotions and unresolved legacies. In the hours following the sacred ritual, the weight of the covenant's revelations pressed upon every soul present. While Oren, Talia, and Caden had found a temporary communion within the ancient texts and relics, the true depths of their bonds, and the bitter scars of betrayal, remained hidden beneath layers of unspoken histories. Under an overcast sky, Talia wandered away from the modest gathering at the stone archway, her mind swirling with both hope and trepidation. The gentle drizzle mingled with her rising uncertainty. Despite the unity they had momentarily achieved, an intangible force tugged at her spirit, a whisper from the recesses of her past, urging her to seek answers that went far beyond the pages of a forgotten journal. In a secluded alcove behind a cluster of weathered pines, she paused to collect her thoughts. The forest around her murmured in hushed tones, as though it were privy to the secrets of old. Her reflections were suddenly interrupted by a quiet rustling. Emerging from the twilight, a solitary figure appeared. A woman of indeterminate age draped in a long flowing coat that seemed to absorb the dim light. Her presence was delicate yet undeniably commanding, her eyes shining with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Talia," the stranger addressed her softly, her voice carrying an echo of ancient wisdom, "you have come far, yet the truth you seek lies not only in the legacy of Orin but within your own blood." Startled, Talia's heart pounded as she regarded the mysterious visitor. "Who are you?" she inquired, her tone laced with curiosity and a budding apprehension. "How do you know my name, and what do you mean by my blood?" The woman stepped closer, each movement graceful as if she were dancing with the very wind. "I am Evelyn," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "I have watched over our kind for generations, preserving the memory of those whose lives were entwined with both magic and suffering. There is a truth buried deep within you, a connection that has been obscured by time and silence. Your lineage, Talia, is intertwined with the ancient pact that binds these lands. It is not mere chance that led you to Orin. The threads of fate have woven our stories together in a design far grander than you could imagine." Talia felt an unexpected jolt of recognition as Evelyn spoke. Memories, once blurred and distant, began to surface. Whispered lullabies from her childhood, fragments of conversations between her grandmother and secretive relatives, and the unexplainable feeling that she had always been destined for something beyond an ordinary life. "What are you saying?" Talia murmured, her voice barely audible over the soft patter of rain on leaves. "That my family has a role in this ancient covenant?" Evelyn's eyes glistened with a mix of compassion and sorrow. "Yes, dear one. Your ancestors were once the guardians of a sacred trust, a promise made with forces far beyond mortal ken. They carried the burden of protecting humanity from the encroaching darkness, yet they too were susceptible to the lure of ambition and betrayal. Over time, the purity of that charge was corrupted, leaving behind a legacy of secrets and regrets. The blood in your veins is a testament to that legacy, a heritage that binds you to the very heart of this unfolding destiny." At that moment, a low, distant howl rippled through the night, its sound both mournful and resonant. Talia shivered, feeling as if the earth itself lamented the lost hopes of a bygone era. Across the clearing she caught sight of Orin, who stood near the ancient stone altar with his eyes closed in pensive silence. His posture, rigid yet vulnerable, suggested he too bore the heavy toll of the past. For an instant, Talia's thoughts wavered between Evelyn's revelation and the silent anguish etched on Orin's face. Driven by an inner resolve that mingled with the tension of unresolved fate, Talia approached Evelyn. "Why now?" she demanded gently. "Why reveal these secrets at this moment?" The words tumbled out in a mix of desperation and curiosity. "Because the covenant is fraying," Evelyn explained as if reading the tumult in Talia's eyes. "The ritual you participated in was only the beginning. Forces both ancient and modern are converging upon us, seeking to exploit the rift between our kind and the mortal realm. The darkness that plagues Orin's bloodline has a far greater purpose than mere ancestral regret. It seeks to claim our future if we do not mend the wounds of betrayal once and for all." Evelyn's revelation struck Talia with the force of a storm. She felt the gravity of her newfound heritage pull her inexorably toward a destiny that both terrified and excited her. Was it possible that she, too, carried within her the potential to either doom or save this fractured family? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, clamorous commotion emanating from the direction of the ancient sanctum. With rapid steps, Talia hurried back along the winding path, guided by the vague, urgent echoes of voices that now reverberated through the forest. Rounding a copse of towering cedars, she found Orin and Caden locked in a tense, heated discussion with a group of elder shifters gathered in a semicircle. Their expressions were fraught with concern and indignation, as if the equilibrium of their entire world depended on this discussion. At the center of the assembly was a figure clad in regal attire, a shifter whose presence radiated authority and whose eyes bore witness to centuries of wisdom and regret. This was Lyric, the matriarch of the pack, revered and feared for her prophetic insights. "Enough," Lyric's voice thundered over the hushed murmurs, silencing the assembly in an instant. "The hour of reckoning has drawn near. Our covenant, our very existence, teeters on a knife's edge. The revelations of tonight expose the fractures in our lineage, fractures that threaten to collapse our world into chaos if left unhealed." Her gaze swept over the assembled kin, landing briefly on Orin and then, with an unexpected intensity, on Talia. You, child of two worlds, bear the mark of both salvation and peril. You must decide where your true allegiance lies, with the cursed legacy of our past, or with a future forged anew by unyielding hope and fierce love. The words of Lyric, heavy with prophecy, left the gathered shifters in a suspended state of disquiet. Orin's face, haunted and resolute, revealed the secret torment of years filled with regret and unspoken battles. I have spent a lifetime retreating into silence, he confessed, his voice trembling with the weight of inevitability. But the sins of the past demand confession. Only by embracing truth, even when it cuts us deep, can we hope to mend what has been shattered. Caden, standing slightly apart, regarded the unfolding drama with a mixture of cynicism and grudging hope. We have avoided our destiny for too long, he intoned, his tone raw and almost accusatory. The time for half-truths and silent suffering has passed. Every lie ignored, every secret hoarded, has only led us to this precipice of despair. His words lent an edge of urgency to the gathering, as though he were daring the pack to finally confront the dark legacy that bound them. Amid the impassioned exchanges, Talia's inner conflict reached a fevered pitch. Evelyn's earlier words mingled with the fierce declarations of the elders, each demanding an irrevocable choice from her. Her mind raced back to the moments shared with Orin under the silver glow of the lunar eclipse, moments filled with promises of redemption, yet tainted by the immutable burden of secrecy. Now, confronted with the undeniable proof of her own lineage and the burgeoning threat of an ancient darkness, Talia realized she was at a crossroads. In a rare burst of courage, Talia stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering despite the storm of emotions raging within her. I cannot remain on the fringes any longer, she declared, her words carrying the resonance of generations long silenced. I have been given a choice, one that no one in our family has ever truly known. I stand here not as a passive bearer of ancestral guilt, but as a living bridge between two worlds. My past, my blood, holds the key to our salvation, and if I must risk everything to restore the honor of our name and secure our future, then I will embrace that destiny. Her proclamation rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. Orin's eyes locked onto hers, a mixture of admiration and anguish evident in the depths of his gaze. You speak of a destiny that both terrifies and inspires me, he admitted softly, his tone laden with both hope and sorrow. For years, I have feared that my silence would condemn us all to an endless cycle of betrayal. But perhaps, in your courage, there is a way to break that cycle, a way to finally confront the unyielding truths of our past. Lyric, with a soft yet piercing look, approached Talia and placed a weathered hand upon her shoulder. The journey you now undertake is fraught with danger, and every step will require you to face your innermost doubts. But know this, you carry with you not only the legacy of our ancestors but also the potential to heal our wounded past. Your resolve will be tested in ways you cannot yet fathom, yet it is through these tests that true redemption may arise. At that moment, an unsettling tremor ran through the earth, and a deep, resonant hum emanated from beneath the stones of the ancient sanctum. The ground shuddered as if reacting to the intensifying emotions of those gathered, and the once calm night transformed into a cacophony of nature's warning. The balance is shifting, Caden warned, his eyes filled with grim determination. Something stirs in the depths of our heritage, a force that has lain dormant for centuries, now reawakening to challenge every promise we have made. It is as though the very soul of the forest mourns the betrayal committed by our forebears. As the tremor subsided into a haunting stillness, a spectral glow began to seep from beneath the stone floor. The light illuminated cryptic carvings that had long been forgotten, and slowly, an image began to materialize, a depiction of a woman whose likeness bore an uncanny resemblance to Talia. The realization struck her like lightning. This figure was both a guardian and a harbinger, a manifestation of the bloodline that she had only glimpsed in fragmented dreams. The image, ephemeral and powerful, seemed to rise from the depths to beckon her closer. Orin's voice broke through the charged silence. That image, it speaks of a prophecy, a reminder that our fates have long been intertwined. Talia, could it be that your arrival was foretold? That your destiny has always been to bear the light that dispels the darkness plaguing us? His words were filled with a fervent blend of hope and trepidation, each syllable stirring the already tumultuous air with the promise of an impending change. Before the assembly could offer an answer, the spectral glow intensified and whispers, like the rustling of dead leaves, filled the chamber. Lyric's eyes widened in a mixture of reverence and alarm. The past is calling out, she pronounced, her voice laden with both wonder and warning. The secrets you carry, Talia, are not simply relics of a time long gone. They are the keys to an imminent reckoning, a reckoning that will demand the ultimate act of truth from us all. In that suspended heartbeat of time, as the voices of the past seemed to merge with the present, Talia felt the unmistakable pull of destiny. The revelation that her own identity was intricately woven into the tapestry of this ancient curse unsettled her, but it also ignited a fierce determination to forge a new future. Every truth that had been hidden, every lie that had been nurtured in silence, now converged into a single defining moment of choice. Yet, as the glow faded and the murmurs receded into the soft drumming of raindrops on stone, an uneasy tension gripped the assembly, a realization that the unearthing of the past was only the prelude to a far greater trial. With the spectral image of her ancestor still echoing in her mind, Talia understood that the final confrontation, the unveiling of an even deeper, darker secret, loomed before them. It was a secret that promised to shatter long-held beliefs and force each of them to confront the parts of themselves they had long denied. The night, already saturated with sorrow and resolve, now carried with it the unmistakable scent of impending catastrophe. In the charged silence that followed, a single question hung in the air, a question that encapsulated the burden of their collective fate, and one that Talia alone must soon answer. Would the light of truth be enough to redeem a legacy steeped in betrayal, or would the shadows of the past consume them all? The stirring winds carried a final, chilling whisper as the assembly disbanded into uneasy clusters, each member burdened with their own tumult of emotions and doubts. Talia, standing before the spectral image that had imprinted itself on her soul, felt the inexorable pull of destiny tighten its grip. With the rain tapping a relentless rhythm on the ancient stones, she vowed silently to confront the secret that lay at the very heart of the prophecy, even if that confrontation would force her to sacrifice everything she had ever known. In that defining moment, as the last vestiges of spectral glow dissolved into the murky darkness and the murmurs of the past faded into an ominous stillness, the path forward shuddered on the edge of the known and the unfathomable, a precipice of choice teetering precariously on the brink of absolute truth and eternal uncertainty. Under a sky streaked with the blush of imminent dawn, the ancestral grounds were transformed into a bridge between fading darkness and the promise of rebirth. The ethereal remnants of the lunar eclipse still hovered like memories suspended in time, while nature itself seemed to exhale a sigh of relief. The heavy burden of the cursed covenant momentarily lifted. Talia stood before the ancient stone altar, her heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and resolute hope. Around her, the shifters began to reassemble, their expressions softened by the raw vulnerability exposed during the ritual. In that charged, silent moment, every heartbeat echoed with the possibility of change. Talia's earlier encounter with the spectral image of her ancestor, the guardian who had once safeguarded the sacred trust, had ignited within her an awareness that transcended mere lineage. As the rain tapered into a gentle drizzle, she recalled the fragments of wisdom imparted by Evelyn and the solemn words of the matriarch, Lyric. Yet amid the sorrow, there now emerged a vibrant undercurrent of possibility, the choice to transform not only her own destiny but that of her entire fractured family. Clutched in her hand was the silver locket, once a relic of old grief, now a talisman embodying the fragile promise of unity. Today we stand at the precipice of new beginnings, Orin declared, his voice resonant with newfound determination. His eyes, once shadowed by the weight of silence, now shone with the light of a man willing to unburden his soul. For too long our past has chained us to regret and despair. But if we have learned anything from this night, it is that truth, no matter how painful, has the power to break even the strongest of curses. His words stirred a ripple through the assembly, each shifter nodding in tacit acknowledgement of the potential for redemption. From the rear of the gathering, Caden stepped forward, his demeanor transformed by the storm of confrontation and reconciliation that had transpired. I have spent years entrenched in bitterness, convinced that our fate was sealed by ancient betrayals, he admitted, his voice heavy with remorse. But tonight I have seen the spark that can mend what was broken. Our lineage is not defined solely by our misdeeds but by the choices we make when confronted with the truth. His confession, raw and unguarded, forged an unspoken bond among those present, a commitment to face the darkness together. The spectral glow, which had first manifested as an ominous sign, began to soften as the murmurs of their united voices reached a crescendo. In the flickering silver light, the spectral figure from earlier reappeared, a luminous, graceful presence hovering near the ancient dais. The figure's visage, at once both enigmatic and intimately familiar, seemed to echo the legacy of the guardian of old. Slowly, the apparition spoke in a voice that resonated like wind through the autumn leaves. "The night has borne witness to your transformation. The burdens you have carried, the secret pacts, and the tears of broken promises are now given way to the strength of your united hearts. Talia, you have awakened the guardian within, one who was destined to lead not only by bearing the scars of the past but by ushering in a dawn of healing." A hushed silence fell over the assembly as Talia absorbed the ethereal pronouncement. Her mind raced through memories of half-forgotten dreams and cryptic folklore whispered by her grandmother, stories that hinted at a sacred duty woven into her very blood. In that fleeting moment, a shocking truth began to crystallize in her heart. The guardian's words suggested that her role was far more profound than a mere bystander in the saga of betrayal. She was to be the catalyst, the spark that would ignite the reform of an entire lineage. Yet, even as this revelation stirred a flame of hope, a final, unexpected twist lay waiting on the horizon. Just as the first rays of the sun began to filter through the canopy, casting a golden glow upon the reverent faces of the shifters, a powerful tremor rippled through the ground. The ancient altar shuddered as centuries-old stones vibrated in unison with the heartbeat of the earth. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as the trembling revealed a hidden compartment within the altar's base. From this concealed space, a luminous, intricately carved box emerged, its surface adorned with symbols that pulsed with a radiance that defied time. With careful deliberation, Talia knelt before the sacred box. Oren and Caden, along with several elder shifters, formed a protective circle around her as she reached out tremblingly and lifted the lid. Inside lay a collection of ancient artifacts, a faded scroll inscribed with a prophecy, a delicate ring of silver etched with runic symbols, and most striking of all, a mirror-like medallion that seemed to capture the very essence of starlight. As Talia's eyes met the medallion's reflective surface, a cascade of visions assaulted her mind. Visions of past glories, tragic betrayals, and a destiny intertwined with the fate of both the supernatural and the mortal realms. The scroll, brittle with age yet imbued with the weight of irrevocable truth, trembled in her hands. Unfurling it with care, she began to read aloud a prophecy that had been sealed away by time and fear. "When the blood of the guardian meets the silver of truth, the curse shall be unbound. Through sacrifice and the union of divided souls, the darkness that has long imprisoned our hearts shall recede, giving birth to a covenant of light, a new era where redemption is carved in the legacy of love." The words echoed with an undeniable finality, and the assembly felt the shifting of destiny like a tangible force. Suddenly, the medallion, which Talia cradled protectively, began to glow with an otherworldly brilliance. Its light enveloped her, infusing her with a warmth that radiated through every fiber of her being. In that transformative instant, it was as if the guardian's spirit had awakened fully within her, melding her essence with the promise of a redeemed future. Oren, eyes brimming with tears and unspoken relief, stepped close to Talia. "This medallion, it is the key," he whispered reverently. The ancient text spoke of its power, the power to shatter the chains of old curses and allow our true selves to emerge. It is not merely a relic, it is a beacon of hope and a declaration that our legacy is ours to redefine. Caden, his voice steady despite the tumult, added, "We stand on the threshold of a new era. The past will always be with us, but its hold is breaking. Our sins and betrayals have built these wounds, but it is now time for us to bind them with forgiveness and the strength of our united resolve." The assembly of shifters, now emboldened by the revelation of the prophecy and the medallion's potent symbol, began to chant in a language as old as the forest itself. Their voices rose in harmonious unison, a solemn incantation that reverberated against the ancient stones and stirred the very air with a promise of renewal. As the chants swelled, the medallion's glow intensified until it bathed the entire clearing in a dazzling radiance, a surreal fusion of moonlight and the golden promise of dawn. In this conflux of supernatural power and human will, Talia felt her deepest doubts dissolve. The visions that had once haunted her now became a source of strength, a clear directive that her life, her sacrifices, and her love for Oren were not in vain. She had been chosen to bridge the gap between past transgressions and a hopeful future, to unify a clan fractured by silence and betrayal. With every word of the ancient prophecy and every note of the shifter's chant, the curse that had for so long tormented their kind seemed to recede like the fading echoes of a long-forgotten nightmare. As the first full rays of sunlight finally broke through the lingering mist, illuminating the clearing with the promise of renewal, a palpable shift occurred. The spectral glow that had danced around Talia's ancestor had now merged fully with her being, affirming that the guardian within was not an isolated fragment of the past, but a living, breathing force of transformation. The medallion's light gradually settled into a gentle luminescence that resonated with the steady rhythm of a reborn heart. Lyric, her voice soft yet filled with reverence, spoke one final time, "Let this day be etched in our history not as a day of sorrow and regret, but as the dawn of a new covenant, a covenant forged in truth, fortified by love, and destined to heal the fractures of our lineage." Her words, both a benediction and a call to arms, were carried on the breeze to every corner of the ancient grounds. In that unified moment, the relentless cycle of betrayal and silence was broken. Talia's bravery in embracing her destiny had not only freed her own spirit, but it also illuminated the path forward for all those who had been captive to the legacies of old. The shifters, once divided by secrets and ancient grudges, now found themselves bound by a shared purpose, a collective vow to build a future where redemption was attainable and love reigned supreme. As the echoes of the final chant faded into the gentle hum of a waking world, Talia gently closed the ancient scroll and tucked the medallion safely against her heart. Surrounded by Orin, Caden, Lyric, and the entire assembly of her kin, she gazed toward the horizon where the rising sun heralded a new dawn. The journey had been harrowing, filled with revelations and sacrifices, but in its wake lay the triumphant promise of transformation, a destiny remade by the courage to confront the past and the resolve to nurture the light of the future. Thus, in the golden light of morning, the ancient curse was laid to rest. The shifters, once captive to their haunted heritage, now embraced the power of their collective truth. Through betrayal, loss, and unyielding struggle, they had discovered that redemption was not merely an elusive dream but a tangible reality waiting to be claimed. With hearts unburdened and spirits alight, they stepped forward into an era defined not by the shadows of yesterday, but by the radiant promise of tomorrow. In that final, transcendent moment, where the past and future converged in a symphony of hope and determination, the legacy of silence was shattered, and the light of truth prevailed. The journey of Talia, Orin, and their kin had reached its pinnacle, leaving behind the scars of bygone times to welcome a future reborn in love, unity, and the everlasting power of redemption.